So guys, I recently wrapped up a ride and review of the 2025 GSXR 750, and it is easy to see why so many people consider this bike the greatest of all time when it comes to sport bikes. And considering that 2025 marks 40 years of production of the GSXR 750, it doesn't look like there's any stopping anytime soon. With such a strong brand loyal base, it looks like the GSXR 750 is here to stay regardless of how little Suzuki chooses to update or upgrade that bike. It's kind of hard to build upon something that's already that good and that already fits the niche that it does. And it brings up the question for me though, can the GSXR 750 still hold its own and remain relevant when put up against some of its now soon-to-be closest rivals? The Yamaha R9, the KTM 990 RCR, and the Ducati V2 Panigale. Can it still be the greatest of all time in light of that new competition? Well, let me give you my thoughts on it, and maybe we can agree, or maybe we'll even agree to disagree. So diving into this, first of all, the GSXR 750 is a retro bike. It just doesn't advertise as such. And you may wonder what I'm going on about. The GSXR 750 for 2025 has none of the rider aids, none of the technology suite that so many of these other motorcycles have allowed consumers to take for granted. Things like TFT screens, connectivity, quick shifters, and you get the idea, the list goes on. The GSXR 750 is still very much a throwback riding experience. It even blends in to the ergonomics of the bike. It's a not as committed, but yet still very committed old school throwback seating position, and it accommodates riders of varying heights, anywhere from 5'6" to 6'4". I've known folks that have owned this bike, myself included. By the way, you're going to have to forgive a little bit of maybe baked into the cake bias here because I owned a GSXR 750. It was my track bike and my street bike so many years ago. It's kind of mentioned in that ride-along video. I'll post up in the description below a link to it. But yeah, it still is everything that you could have hoped for and wanted a bike to be. But it is still a bit throwback. The question that I have though is that necessarily a bad thing? Because at this power level, at what is in essence 150 horsepower out of the GSXR 750, with modern tire technology, modern suspension, you don't really ever get to employ some of the nannies that are touted in these other motorcycles. The R9 is the best example. That is one of its key marketing points, is just how many rider aids that it has. But getting back to where I was going with this, modern tires on clean tarmac, you'll be very hard pressed to have any of the nannies kick in at any pace that you may be riding just shy of full-on track hit. And when you say it like that, it kind of makes you wonder what good are the nannies, especially if by the time they start to become employable, you might be in a much worse situation already as it is. What I'm saying is that rider error can't be electronically aided out of the equation, nor can the laws of physics. So at this power level, with modern tire technology being what it is the new technology suite really a good way to try to sell a bike? I don't know that it is. Now, some would argue that a TFT screen might not be a bad addition. I mean, the GSXR 750, the way that it sits today, gets by with an analog tachometer and an LCD screen with a speedometer and a gear selector. That's it. Those are the only indicators that are going to be in your line of sight. There's not a gas gauge on this thing, guys. So there's a light. That's it. A low fuel light. There's something just inherently awesome, though, about that for me. It's such a throwback in that respect as well. That is the charm of the GSXR 750, and it is why so many people buy them. It is why so many people graduate up into the GSXR 750, and it's why so many guys that are on leader bikes sometimes will graduate down to one. It really is that perfect middle ground. And with all of the old school charm and flavor coming through, just as an aside, the intake growl out of that bike is second to none. And the exhaust sound is the best inline four-cylinder sound in the business. I won't even accept an argument against that. What more could you want? And here's the other kicker. It's only $13,000. You see, the R9 that is coming with all of its technology and lack of power, we're going to get to the power plants here in a second, but that motorcycle is checking in at about the same cost. So with the other super middleweights like the KTM and the Ducati costing so much more that they're almost not even in the conversation anymore, GSXR 750 really only has one viable competitor in the marketplace. So how do they stack up to ride? Well, if you want to know what it's like to ride an R9, because a lot of dealerships don't have them yet, just go find you an MT09 or an XSR 900 and go give that a rip. And that will give you all of the necessary information you'll need, because that CP3 engine that is in those motorcycles that I just mentioned, it's no different in the R9, meaning that it's making somewhere around 115, 117 horsepower at the flywheel and a very nice 69 pound-feet of torque. The GSXR 750 is making just shy of 150 horsepower and a still very potent 64 pound-feet of torque. And yes, it does make it significantly higher in the RPM range, the 750 versus that CP3. But the 750's got a lot more aggressive gearing, about 15% more aggressive, mind you. And so that torque advantage that CP3 powered R9, or any of the other bikes for that matter, should you choose to ride one, it's not gonna be all that intrusively different. So you've got a motorcycle in the GSXR 750 that weighs 420 pounds, about the same as the R9, makes significantly more horsepower than the R9. They both do have bespoke chassis, although the R9 is loosely based on the MT09. At least it has its own main chassis, so there is that. There are differences to the R9 that make it much more sport bike-like than some of maybe other middleweight sporty bikes. Basically, they're just fully fared sport nakeds. But in this case, we're talking specifically about the R9 and those super middleweights. You've got two good sport bikes here, both of them costing roughly the same. One of them representing a legacy, a 40-year domination, and has earned the greatest of all time title, going up against the R9, which is using a corporate kind of a do-everything engine. There's nothing wrong with the engine itself. It's just not what I would consider to be all that technologically advanced. I mean, with all the rider aids that are coming with the R9, you would think that they'd have done something with that CP3, knowing that it was going to be compared to the GSXR 750, but yet they didn't. And this is the other part that I wanted to make sure I didn't forget to make. The CP3 has a compression ratio of only 11.5 to 1. Now, you compare that to the GSXR 750, which is only 12.5 to 1. Guys, my pickup truck, stock, with a Coyote V8, it's a Ford F-150, has a compression ratio of 12 to 1. The CP3 doesn't even have the same compression ratio as a pickup truck. There's a lot of room to grow is what I'm getting at with that engine platform. Maybe Yamaha is betting on that for future variants. I would certainly hope so, because when the GSXR 750 goes through its next phase of possible updates, higher compression ratio and a little bit longer duration, a little bit more aggressive cams could come along with it. There's some talk that 100 and almost 50 horsepower could get to 155 or 160 for the next generation. So guys, which do you choose? Do you go with the GOAT, the bike that has all of the DNA spread all throughout every sport bike that's ever been made, as the GSXR 750 is kind of considered to be the first true, real, pure sports bike? Or do you go with this latest R9, a bike with potentially some very strong upside, but has yet to really prove itself? Guys, I'd love to hear what y'all have to say about this. Post up in the comments and let me know which bike you would go with and why. And I'll catch y'all on the next one. Thanks for stopping by.